With regards to navigation, there is one thing that we have to clear up first, using the documentation of Pexels. Because if you look at the documentation, we can find out that in addition to the current page and to the amount of pictures per page and the total number of pictures available, we also get a URL for the previous page and for the next page. But be careful, these are, sorry, I clicked the wrong way. These are optional. That means they don't have to be in the JSON. For example, here you see there, because it's the first page, there is no previous page. So that's the reason why there is no previous page. But there is a next page. So the code that we write needs to be aware of this. And the easiest way to do this is to hand this full record here, because it's in the first object, it's not part of the photos, it's outside of the photos. If we hand this object here after receiving the result from the web service to a navigation component that we create, in addition to our gallery component. And just like with the image gallery, it needs to generate HTML in a certain place on our page. And that's what we're going to look at first. We're going to look at the design of this. I showed you in the documentation what I used. And again, I literally copy-pasted from the documentation. I went into the uform HTML, and I want this below my gallery. This is where the gallery is getting generated. So this is where I want my navigation, right here. And the navigation has the ID pages. Here, where the pages are, is the unordered list, UL. And to this UL, I add LIs, list items, with my navigation elements. And that's literally what the component will do. So we're going to add a new unit. We're naming it Pagination. And I'm going to declare type Pagination. Obviously, you can make this your own by naming it giving it some sort of name that your company or whatever your brand uses. Then you can say class function, generate pagination. And then we need, as a parameter for this pagination, we need the object that is being returned from the Pexels service. So we say a Pexels response. That is a TJS object. I wasn't around when they had the typing courses in school. Okay, and these types, of course, have to be declared. So we can go to the image gallery component and copy paste the uses from there, like that. Implementation, and with that we can start doing the implementation. So first we can get the current page, and of course we have to declare the variables all the time. So current page is of type integer. And then we also need the total pages, which is also an integer. And I think we need basically the element for the pagination. It's a TJS element. We don't need any, oh, actually we do. No, we don't. We don't need any events, because as we look at the pagination component for the click, we use a link. So we don't use events. We can actually use the link element to do this. And the link element will be the one that gets the actual, how would I say, the click element. When we click on previous, something should happen. When we click on next, something should happen. So that element needs to be an HTML element, I think. Yes. So let's see. The pagination element is a JS element. LELLI is a TJS HTML element. And then I think that suffices, because I insert HTML. We don't need any element for the link that we generate. Okay, just as a reminder, looking at the documentation, this is what we'll generate now. These LIs, this UL is already inside of our HTML. It's in the definition right here. And in between here, we will fill the data with these LIs. And we just declared the element LI variable, and that variable will get an on-click event. So if somebody clicks on previous or somebody clicks on next, something will happen. Okay, so going from there, and that gives us some additional headache, so to speak, because the pagination obviously needs to be able to communicate with the form if something gets clicked, right? And in Delphi, we have, easily enough, we have events for that. So we define an event type, and we say Pagination clicked. That's a procedure. And we also need to transfer the URL that was clicked, right? So we do URL of string of object. Perfect. Then we can do here. We can't make this a class function anymore because now this pagination needs to stay alive while we use our page. So we do property on pagination clicked, and then the URL has to be pagination clicked, read, then we need f on pagination clicked, and write f on pagination clicked. And let's make this type add event to it. That makes it better. Okay, and with that, we have the ability to communicate with the outside world that uses this pagination. It will all become a little bit clearer when you see the complete implementation. This pagination class is just there to generate the HTML and the interaction for the pagination based on the Pexels response, so you don't have it in your main form. You could argue, and you wouldn't be wrong, that the fetching could also be done in the same unit, or the fetcher could be your own class that fetches the specific URLs. There's quite a few different options here, but I wanted to keep this demonstration or this example in some sort of limits, even though we're going multiple hours already, but still, this is still a very good architecture for you to use because the components, I call them components, they're not, they're not derived from T component or something like that. So strictly speaking, they're classes, but the classes have to communicate with the web page. And that's what we can do with this event here. So as soon as one of the links, either previous or next, get clicked, we call on pagination clicked with the URL that, and what is the URL? Well, in the response from the, let me show you, in the response, we get the next page and the previous page. And that is by the API actually adjusted to the request that we send. When we send curated photos, that includes the curated link. If it's like a search, this will be the URL for that search. So we'll be good to go there. So it might sound a little bit abstract at first, but it will become very, very clear as soon as we look at it in detail. Okay, just trust me on this. And this is a video on YouTube. You can re-watch this part if I go too quickly and re-watch it again. So the current page, looking at the Pexels response and looking at the JSON that we have, the current page is right, where is it? Here, page. That's the property that we need to read. We also have the total results. So if we divide the total results by the number of per page, then we get the number of total pages, right? And that's exactly what we need to do. So we also need a variable for the total results, integer. So the current page is from our object, a Pexels response, the page, and we have to convert that to integer. So we can call it to a number like this. And this is actually something that we can copy paste. So we have the current page, we have the total results. And this is my worst trait, so to speak. I cannot remember these things ever, because if you implement multiple APIs, so I always copy paste them over. So that's the total results. And then we have the total pages. we can calculate that. The total pages is total results divided by, well, we also need the ones per page. So L results per page, also an integer number. Wonderful. What would I give for inline variables per page? And then we have JS2 number. And then we have to look up what it's called. Copy here. And because I don't remember what it was called, it is per page. Wonderful. Copy and paste. Perfect. So we have results per page divided by L results per page. And that has to be topped up to the bottom. So we want to round that up, which is ceil in JavaScript, but I think we have the same thing in Delphi if we do uses math. And then we should be able to call ceil. Yeah, perfect. So that way we should be able to store it in L total pages as an integer, I hope. If not, we have to call trunc as well. What is this here? To number income got double expected long int. Let's see, to number. We have another one here to integer. Yes, I apologize. These all need to be to integer because there are integers and not floats, which are indicated by to number in this case. Okay, let's see if that works. Perfect. So with these things read from the object, we can now make our decision how to render the navigation. Okay, first of all, we need to get EL pagination, our element. That is document dot get element by ID. Well, what's the ID? We'll look it up right here. We have our, down here, we have the pagination pages. That's what the ID should be. So we go to U pagination, say pages, wonderful. And only if that is assigned, we want to keep going because you might have an HTML error of some sort. You don't want your app to crash just because this isn't found. El pagination dot inner HTML is empty because if there previously was a navigation in there, we want to remove that. And now we just have to check if the current page is bigger than 1, then we definitely have a previous, right? So we can create a new element, the L previous element or the next element. So we need 2 of those, L previous and L next. Those are 2 JS HTML elements. So let's do the previous first. L previous is document.createElement. And what do you want to create? We want to create an li. And the class name is page item. And again, if you wonder where does he get this, it's an li with page item. We go to the bootstrap pagination. It's an li element with page item class. And inside of this is this with the title. Okay, what is supposed to be written in there. And that's exactly what we are going to add in there. We're going to write lprev .inner HTML, and I'm literally going to type the HTML. That's possible. A class as page link again. Don't forget that here. I forgot that the first time, and Bootstrap then does not render it correctly. Previous A. Done like that. Perfect. And then we need to add the on-click event on this particular element. So we can say onClick. Well, what happens if this onClick is initiated? So if somebody clicks on previous, where do you want to go? And we need to define a hook for that. So here we say function, and this is a little bit tricky. The onClick events in in JavaScript are actually functions, believe it or not. And the declaration for those, you find them if you go here, onClick, HTML click handler, and there we go, function, a event, mouse event, and a Boolean is being returned. So the onClick events in JavaScript are actually not procedures, they're actually functions. So on link clicked, that's what I'm going to call it. Okay, so I'll implement that here. And then we do console log a event, because otherwise I'm doing so many things up ahead without showing you any results that you won't be able to follow anymore. So let me on link clicked basically put something in there that it gets output. So with that, the lprev can get added. So pagination. Why do I do lel, make this a local variable? I apologize. Got a little bit lost here in my own notation because it's called L and EL. So it's a local element. That's my reasoning behind this. Pagination dot, and then append child. To this pagination, we want to add the previous one. Okay? So this is the previous case. The other one is if L current page smaller than L total pages, right? If we're smaller than the total pages, there is the next page. With that, we can then generate the same thing. We're just going to replace lprev with lnext. So I should be able to Control-Shift lnext. Perfect. That's basically also how I named it. Yes. li, page, everything is the same. Just here you write next. The link on click is the same. And we also add lnext. So this way we either add both of them or only one of them to the pagination. Okay. And the pagination itself is already on the page because that's our hook here. This pages element here is already on the page right here. Good. So that adds the navigation for a Pexels response. The only thing we need to do now, we need to include that on our form. So we go to the main form. We use this, comma, uses pagination. Then in the web form create, we also need a reference to the variable, of course. So we say fpagination, tpagination, perfect. And then here we do, after initializing the trace, fpagination equals tpagination dot create. And of course, if we want to be strict, we go to the form and in on destroy fpagination dot free. Okay, so that creates it. And now we have the ability, after fetching the gallery, to basically update the navigation with the results. So here we have the L photos and all that stuff. We don't want that. We want basically this is what we want to pass to the pagination. So we say fpagination dot generate pagination, and we pass in the object of the response. So the whole thing, basically. And with that, pagination should be generated. Okay, I have a mistake here. Create element. It's not a mistake because TJS element is expected. And I defined this as TJS HTML element because I need on click. So here you simply say create HTML element. TMS provides that. Alternatively, you can always do as and then typecast to the specific type. But in this case, we have a special method, so we don't need a typecast. Okay, hints. Perfect. We run this. And now if we press F12, hopefully, if I click on curated, we're not getting a crash. And there is our next button. And if I look at the HTML that gets generated right here, we see page link href next is there. And let's see if the click works. That's the thing that I'm most interested about. So console, next, click, perfect. So our console log works and we get a pointer event with all that kind of stuff that we use the mouse to click on it. But the most important thing is the target that we clicked on right here. So we get the target or the source element or whatever you want to use here. And the target is basically the link that we clicked on, the page link. And what we can do there, we can add to the link, for example, we could add the URL so we know what we clicked on, right? That would make sense, in my opinion. So what we do, so we can use the same click event for both. Of course, you could say, hey, I'm going to implement that is the other thing. You could implement an anonymous method with this fingerprint here and hook it up to the element. But I didn't want to complicate things too much. So we're just calling on link clicked, and that gives us the element. But right now, with our element, we're not able to determine which URL we want to go to, right? We don't know if we want to go previous or next. We don't have a shot to determine where to go next. That's the problem. We can't tell the form which is actually the URL that it needs to go to. The easiest thing, of course, is to put this into the href, right? Let's say I put this in here so we have a next. So to get this here, let's say we put here HTTPS, TMS software. I just want to test something with you guys, because I think if we use the href, and that sadly is the case with a lot of HTML elements, that then the browser takes over. So you don't have the chance to basically, let's say curated, we click on next, console here. Oh, it doesn't. That's great. So if we go here, we get the link, and then we could use the href in order to basically decide where to jump. So that's what we do, because in the attributes, we should be able to see right here in the href that here the node value is TMS software. So perfect, we use the href. Simple as that. So we go here, and into the href, I put in placeholder. I wrap this in format. Do we have sysutils included? No, we don't. So we add sysutils. And then in sysutils, we have format. So what we can do is, here this next, we can replace with what do we want to basically replace it? Well, for next, this is the next page, right? So what we need to do, we do lnext URL, lprevious URL, both strings. And here, when we create the next one, or the previous one, our previous URL is, we read that from the response. So here we have a Pexels response. And then it is previous page. And of course, we have to convert that to a string, And we can copy paste that here for the next URL. And we do that with next page. Perfect. And then here we can do lnext URL. And for the lprev here, we can do the same thing. lprev, inner HTML, previous lprev URL. Perfect. And now in the onClicked, we can basically read that. We can say LURL is a string, and LURL, so if assigned a event dot, so if assigned a event dot target element, perfect. If we have that, then get that. That's an link. That's a TJS HTML element. So we say a link is a event target element as TJS HTML element. And then we can read the LURL, a link. It's an attribute, dot attribute, right here, and href. That's where we put the link, okay? And we want this as a string, so js.to. I think attributes returns a string by default, so we don't need that. Perfect. And then if, and this is the first, this is also an and assigned, only if both of these are true, our event on pagination clicked. If that isn't assigned, we don't need to do any of this, because then the click doesn't have any consequences. So f on pagination clicked, L URL. Okay, so just for the sake of it, I'm going to say console log L URL, and then we need to connect everything. So the form, the main form, has to get connected to this. So we need to define our event. So procedure on navigation, or pagination clicked, URL string. That's what we defined. And then let's even do one better. Let's don't log here. Let's log where we call it, so we actually see that this gets called. URL. And do we also pass that in? Yes, good. So here we console log the URL that gets in, and now we have to hook up the event to our class. So fpagination, create fpagination dot on pagination clicked, a self on pagination clicked. Perfect. So now when the component has the ability to communicate with the form. So what is going on here? Oh, I typed a colon instead of a semicolon. It should be fine. Good. Let's run and see what we produced. Okay, so search for images, F12, and let's click on something that we know has multiple pages, curated, for example. Okay, so here we have it. And now, if I go here to the right a little bit more, let's click on next, and we should see the URL that is in there. So there you go. HTTP API Pexels.com curated per page. Page 2 is the one that we would request. Let's click on popular and click on next. We would get popular per page, page 2. So this is what needs to be requested. So that is really, really easy to add, because now we can use the same thing that we've used before on our main form. We simply say fetch gallery with that URL. So here we say if URL is empty, is false, then begin. I'm extra careful here. Fetch gallery, and then the URL is the one that we want to fetch. That's all. And then the whole thing starts again. It fetches the data, it builds the image gallery, and it builds the pagination for that particular page. And this really shows the power, how you can dynamically build your pages, right? Not even depending on the endpoint, you don't have to distinguish between the endpoint, because the result of the API is always the same. Okay, so F12, let's say we got the popular one, and then we say next. There's the second page, next, that's the third page, and if you go to the network page, you can actually see that these requests all come in. Let me clear that up. So next, so this is the page 4, as you can see right here. Next is page 5, and then previous should be page 4 again. Page 4, previous is page 3 again. Perfect. Let's search for something. Let's say we search for Delphi. search. There is basically there is no previous, no next, because it's one page. That works. Let's use search for USA, search, next page, and see, it's always like, where is it here? The page 3, previous, page 2. So it works like a charm, honestly. So that's it. That's the whole project. And I mean, yes, the dynamic stuff is a little bit challenging sometimes with the typecast and everything involved, but that's how it is if you live in a type-safe world, you know. Some people might argue in JavaScript you can do this faster or quicker, and believe me or not, I have the JavaScript example as well, because I wanted to see what is faster, what is more efficient. Yes, the advantage with JavaScript is that you can access everything quicker because you don't have to define any types. It's the same thing if you were to look at the difference between TypeScript and JavaScript. Because in TypeScript, you can literally define anything as any, and then you don't have any type safety. But here, we really have to define our types and then can check if the data is in our JSON result and our code is robust and it is architecture-wise. You can use this pagination more or less in all of your projects, you know, and you can, obviously this is a very minimal example that I built so that you can see the basics. But of course you can extend this like in other customer projects for contracting. I built navigation bars that get the navigation from a backend and then dynamically create the navigation for the web client, for example. So with this approach, you have all the basics that you need in order to create your dynamic image galleries with pagination and even with different search results. In this case, curated images, popular images, and images that match a certain search criteria. And just as a recommendation, if you want to dig deeper into the world of TMS WEB Core, have a look at Web Application Development with Delphi. It's a book about nothing else. And also browse my other books. They have certain chapters, certain areas. For example, Xdata, building backends, is a major part of cross-platform, multi-tiered database applications, as well as here, this book about multi-tier cross-platform data access has lots and lots of examples about building a backend with Xdata, but even the web application development with Delphi has a long chapter with a practical example how you get started with Xdata. With that, I would like to leave you. I hope you enjoyed this very extensive project, how to build an image gallery with paging and the ability to search for certain terms. I really enjoyed showing this to you because it shows the flexibility of TMS WEB Core, that you have to build your pages dynamically and also build separate classes that feed the information to your page. And also finally, the ability to hook up controls so that you don't have to hook up events. Very cumbersome. Use it like we had to do it on the pagination. So that is literally the advantage if you use a component. We could have done the same with the edit. We could have dropped an edit control on the form and then set its element ID to the keyword, txt keyword, and then we would have replaced the one line where we used the DOM again here, this one, we would have had easier, you know, we would have simply then used our control that we have on the form and read the text of that control. That is an alternative that you could implement instead of what I have chosen here, because it is just one line of code. So I opted for this instead of using the control on the form designer. But again, TMS WEB Core is flexible. You are basically in command how you structure and build your application. Thank you so much for your interest. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Leave your comments on YouTube in the area designated for your comments, and stay safe. Take care. See you soon.